This video is presented by the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association, in collaboration with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services and FB Environmental. Together, we are working to restore and protect Partridge Lake's watershed, not only to improve water quality, but to ensure this cherished resource remains healthy, resilient, and safe for generations to come. We hope our story is helpful to other homeowner associations. When New Hampshire was first settled in the 1600s, the land was heavily forested. As communities grew, much of this land was clear-cut for timber and converted to farmland. These changes dramatically altered the landscape and the watershed. Over time, rain and runoff carried phosphorus from soils disturbed by human activity into streams and lakes, where it accumulated bottom sediments. In recent decades, continued development, aging infrastructure, and a changing climate have intensified the problem, creating the ideal conditions for harmful cyanobacteria blooms in lakes and other water bodies across the region. Cyanobacteria, often called blue-green algae, are naturally occurring organisms found in fresh water. But when excess nutrients like phosphorus accumulate in the water, these bacteria can grow out of control, forming harmful algal blooms. The life cycle of cyanobacteria is influenced by sunlight, temperature, and nutrient availability. During warm summer months, they reproduce rapidly, especially in still, nutrient-rich water. Blooms may appear as green scum, mats, or paint-like streaks on the lake's surface. As the bloom dies off, decaying cyanobacteria deplete oxygen in the water and release toxins that can harm people, pets, and aquatic life. These recurring cycles not only damage the lake's ecosystem, but also reduce its recreational and economic value. The Partridge Lake Property Owners Association has played a vital role in addressing these challenges. Through regular water testing, we track the lake's health. Volunteers organize cleanup days and actively reduce non-point source pollution from entering the watershed. We've developed 2 comprehensive watershed-based plans to guide restoration and pollution prevention efforts. Residents are also adopting best management practices, both structural, like rain gardens and erosion controls, and non-structural best management practices, such as managing fertilizer use and responsible lawn care. Septic system maintenance is a critical component, helping prevent nutrient leakage into the water. Funding for these efforts comes from state and federal grants and loans, as well as the generous support of our Water Quality Fund. This work thrives because of the dedication of everyday people, our neighbors. No expertise is required, only a willingness to learn, help, and be part of the solution. We partner closely with NHDES and the municipality to ensure a science-based and community-focused approach. Education and vigilance remain our strongest tools. The New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services acts as a guide for associations and residents. NHDES offers expertise, financial resources, and technical support, ensuring that local efforts are informed, effective, and sustainable.
My name is Steve Landry. I work for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services and the Watershed Management Bureau. I also serve as the New Hampshire Non-Point Source Management Program Coordinator. My involvement with Partridge Lake began in 1991 when I was a summer intern at this agency. I was working in the Volunteer Lake Assessment Program, and I was sent to Partridge Lake. It was the first lake I visited as a summer intern, and I met Dayton Goody, who was volunteering with the Partridge Lake Preservation Association at the time. It was a wonderful experience. Got to learn a lot about the lake and a lot about why people in New Hampshire volunteer for lakes and ponds and spend their time and resources on it. In 2008, the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association applied to New Hampshire DES for a watershed assistance grant. We usually get triple the amount of requests for funding that we have available. One of the reasons the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association competed so well was their commitment to their watershed, commitment to their lake, and the expertise on their organization. That first watershed-based plan for Partridge Lake in 2008 was a product of working with consultants and NHDES experts in watershed management and biology, and it paved the way for lake and watershed management that was really essential for getting us to where we are today with the alum treatment that just occurred. Partridge Lake was the first lake to partner with their town, the town of Littleton, to compete for these loan funds administered by the Department of Environmental Services to develop a watershed-based plan. It's important to recognize the partnerships and contributions from everyone involved in getting the Watershed Restoration Plan published in 2022 and beyond. Firms like Gomez and Sullivan, Comprehensive Environmental, FBE, and Solitude all played critical roles in providing technical support and guidance and financial resources to complete the Watershed Restoration Plan and the alum treatment in 2025. Working for a state agency that provides competitive grants for nonprofit organizations and municipalities to do watershed planning and watershed implementation makes our decision process very complicated and competitive. We rely on grant applicants like the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association to come to the table with resources in hand, time, materials, labor, and most importantly, commitment. The most important thing is trust. We need to trust the grant applicants or the loan recipients that we're going to work with on watershed management, watershed implementation, and in some cases, like at Partridge Lake, an in-lake treatment. A few examples of how the Partridge Lake Properties Association has built trust within our agency with respect to the grants that we administer is their dedication to the lake, their dedication to the watershed, their commitment to watershed planning, and most importantly, the actions they've taken without our direction that have led to watershed improvements, watershed protection, and in-lake improvements. One example is the Partridge Lake's aggressive land acquisition history. The Partridge Lake Property Homeowners Association has pursued active land protection through land purchase in their watershed. And that spoke volumes to us. That means that they purchase lands in their watershed that are no longer at risk of development. They have essentially locked down portions of their watershed, kept it mostly forested, and in perpetual protection. This is one of the most impressive acts of independent watershed protection we've seen, and that's what builds confidence in us as a funding agency because we know they're committed to the mission of lake protection and watershed management. One of the most rewarding things about working with the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association from my perspective as a non-point source management program coordinator is their long-term commitment going back to 1991 when I was a summer intern. 30 some odd years later, we see the lake receiving a much needed alum treatment. That was a recommendation in their watershed restoration plan, which further underscores the need for watershed planning in New Hampshire. And the Lake Association is now kind of the vanguard of what you need to do. Long-term monitoring through our volunteer lake assessment program, which they started back in 1989. Here we are in 2025 receiving an alum treatment because it's a recommendation in their watershed restoration plan. This project is a shining example of what partnerships can achieve on the state, town, municipal, private, nonprofit levels. And it's so rewarding to be able to work from the New Hampshire DES perspective in a non-regulatory, resource-heavy, technical service provider role. And can't be happier for the lake, the association, and generations to come at Partridge Lake.
So my name is Amy Smagula, and I'm a freshwater biologist here at the Department of Environmental Services. When I first learned about Partridge Lake, I was an intern, which was probably about 28 years ago. So this has been a career commitment to this lake on some level. As a biologist, the lake was super interesting to me because it had almost no oxygen at the bottom of the lake, which a lot of lakes in New Hampshire have that happen, but this one was almost halfway up the water column of the lake, which is a little more compelling. And it had some, I guess the technical term would be funky algae growing in it, aphanizomenon, which is one, as a biologist, that I don't see that much. And it tells me that a lake is impacted to some degree by a high level of nutrients. So that factor really drew me into the lake science of it, along with the people around the lake who cared so much about it. As we went through the diagnostic study for Partridge, we did identify that there were nutrients coming in from different parts of the watershed and that there were a lot of nutrients that were staying in the lake. And the lake bottom was actually contributing a lot of that phosphorus up into the water column. And that's a problem for lakes, because while you can do some things to mitigate what's coming in from the watershed, that internal source of phosphorus is really hard to manage, and it was directly feeding the cyanobacteria blooms in the lake. So we had to find a way to tackle all of that so that we could bring or rehabilitate Partridge Lake for the future. This is something that doesn't happen every day. And in my career, this is only the fourth that has happened in 28 years, more than 28 years. So it has to be the right lake at the right time to make this happen. The treatment went smoothly. I was on site for the entire treatment, monitoring right behind the barge when they were putting the chemical in, and doing early morning and late afternoon sampling to make sure that everything went smoothly, that aquatic life was safe, public health was safe, and that water chemistry was where it should be. And I'm happy to say that a week after the treatment was completed, we've actually already seen about 1 meter increase in clarity in the lake. And we actually were able to see the reduction in plankton in the water column as a result of the treatment. So that was definitely beneficial.
My name is Laura Deemer. I'm a certified lake manager and senior project manager at FB Environmental Associates here in our Dover, New Hampshire office. For the last year and a half, I've been working with the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association on this project. They hired me as a certified lake manager to assess the viability and candidacy of Partridge Lake to complete an alum treatment, which we successfully did this spring. We are adding a chemical to the lake, and so there are some ecological and human health considerations to make. So aluminum can be toxic to aquatic life in high concentrations, especially at low pH, which is most risky when the aluminum compounds are first added to the water. Once added to the water, the aluminum quickly hydrolyzes and forms a white, fluffy flock that turns the water into that aquamarine color. So once the flock is formed, it's no longer toxic, but its physical presence can be stressful to fish. So we design treatments that help to control the pH, that allow the flock to form and settle quickly, and also allow for areas of refuge and time for rest for the aquatic life. During the treatment, we do monitor pH continuously behind the barge to be sure the flock is forming well, and we monitor for a wider set of parameters in the morning and in the afternoon before and after each day's treatment, and then we perform visual assessments for aquatic life distress as well. Following the treatment, there will be immediate improvement of water quality, so Partridge Lakes should see record high water clarity this year. There really is no management option that completely eliminates the risk of cyanobacteria blooms, because cyanobacteria are a natural component of any ecosystem. What these alum treatments are really doing is buying a community time to address the larger issues in their watershed. I so enjoy being part of these types of projects because it takes a village to get them completed, to start, from the beginning all the way through to successful treatment. It's not only at the local level with the association or a town, but you've got to work at the state level and then bringing in, outside consulting. It's multiple levels in all of these organizations that really comes together to make these projects successful. So I enjoy so much being part of these because it's really inspirational seeing these communities come together.
I'd say the biggest challenge for our group was time. The watershed restoration plan, it was a year to get the funding for it, and then it was 2 years for the actual restoration plan. So any volunteers that join your group or help, you got to make sure that they have enough time to commit to see the project through to fruition.
One of the challenges we found was coordinating between all the different parties. The volunteers, the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association, our steering committee, the town, the New Hampshire DES, getting everybody together and working on the project step by step.
Our greatest strength is volunteerism. We started with one individual, which was lifetime resident Dayton Gowdy, who joined the volunteer lake assessment program, and that grew into almost 50 volunteers over time. We focused on best management practices, things that we could control ourselves. I think the best advice I could give to a lake association is that your first call should be to DES. They're a wonderful group of people and a terrific source of information to help guide you through this process. The second call I would make would be to a lake manager. We were fortunate to deal with two great lake managers, FB Environmental and Comprehensive Environmental Inc., or CEI.
So some helpful advice to give to others is we started very early on, many decades ago, with a water quality fund, and so every year people put in small amounts, large amounts, whatever they can afford towards our water quality fund. So, you know, it had some teeth to it by the time we got to the point where we were doing the project. Another thing is thinking outside of the box, such as we used some of that money from the water quality to pay for materials for the culvert work that needed to be done. So the town came in and did the culvert work, but we paid the materials, which helped get the town to do more of this work. And additionally, we had some very wonderful people on the lake that bought a lot of the watershed property around, or sections of it, and put it into conservation. We found the New Hampshire DES to be extremely helpful with the steps involved. There's a lot of steps involved, but they will take you through it piece by piece. They'll help you with the billing and how to manage the tasks on the billing, you know, so don't let that overwhelm you if you're starting this process, but you have to have patience, you have to start early, and they will help you through it every step of the way.
I'd like to thank all those involved, past and present, for all their hard work, all the volunteers, close to 50 people in our association, Town of Littleton, our municipality, the Department of Public Works, DES, FB Environmental, CEI. I mean, it has been a real group effort, and we all came together over many, many years to make this all happen. And we're extremely grateful. We won't forget, and we'll continue to work to preserve our beautiful lake.
With continued collaboration, education, and stewardship, we can ensure that Partridge Lake remains a place of beauty, balance, and belonging for generations to come.